The emphasis was too fine to attract notice, but I remembered it after. "Then, my dear fellow, why not? Knock about a bit and see the world. But to my thinking, the best you could do would be to marry again." He shook his head drearily. "Of course, it is a delicate matter to urge upon a widower, but you have paid the utmost ceremonial respect. 4 years, you know. The greatest stickler for propriety would deem it ample. It isn't that, Dick. I have a great mind to tell you rather a queer story." He puffed hard at his smoke and stared into the red coals in the pauses. "But I don't know what you'd think of it, or think of me." "Try me," I said. "I'll give you my opinion after, and you know I'm safe to confide in. I sometimes think I should feel better if I told it. It's queer enough to be laughable, but it hasn't been any laughing matter to me." He threw the stump of his cigar into the fire and turned to me, and then I saw how pale he was, and that a dew of perspiration was breaking out on his white face. "I was very much of your opinion, Dick. I thought I should be happier if I married again, and I went so far as to get engaged. But the engagement was broken off, and I'm going to tell you why. My wife was some time ailing before she died, and the doctors were in consultation. But I did not know how serious her complaint was till the last. Then they told me there was no hope, as coma had set in. But it was possible, even probable, that there would be a revival of consciousness before death, and for this I was to hold myself ready. I dare say you will write me down a coward, but I dreaded the revival. I was ready to pray that she might pass away in her sleep. I knew she held exalted views about the marriage tie, and I felt sure that if there were any last words, she would extract a pledge. I could not at such a moment refuse to promise, and I did not want to be tied. You will recollect that she was my senior. I was about to be left a widower in middle life, and in the natural course of things, I had a good many years before me, you see. My dear fellow, I don't think a promise so extorted ought to bind you. It isn't fair. Wait and hear me. I was sitting here, miserable enough as you may suppose, when the doctor came to fetch me to her room. Mrs. Enderby was conscious and had asked for me, but he particularly begged me not to agitate her in any way, lest pain should return. She was lying stretched out on the bed, looking already like a corpse. "Tom," she said, "they tell me I am dying, and there is something I want you to promise." I groaned in spirit. It was all up with me, I thought. But she went on. "When I am dead and in my coffin, I want you to cover my face with your own hands. Promise me this." It was not in the very least what I expected. Of course I promised. "I want you to cover my face with a particular handkerchief on which I set a value. When the time comes, open the cabinet to the right of the window, and you will find it in the 3rd drawer from the top. You cannot mistake it, for it is the only thing in the drawer." That was every word she said, if you believe me, Dick. She just sighed and shut her eyes as if she was going to sleep, and she never spoke again. 3 or 4 days later, they came to ask me if I wished to take a last look, as the undertaker's men were about to close the coffin. I felt a great reluctance, but it was necessary I should go. She looked as if made of wax, and was colder than ice to touch. I opened the cabinet, and there, just as she said, was a large handkerchief of very fine cambric, lying by itself. It was embroidered with a monogram device in all 4 corners, and was not of a sort I had ever seen her use. I spread it out and laid it over the dead face, and then what happened was rather curious. It seemed to draw down over the features and cling to them, to nose and mouth and forehead, and the shut eyes.